Ladies and gentlemen, the millennial generation is actually having a very tough time with drugs, alcohols, and suicides. You would think this younger generation would be, getting off with their careers or going to school and just trying to get things done in their lives. And the exact opposite is happening to them, y'all. They are dying at an alarming rate. So shocking that now people are bringing a lot of attention to what's going on. I saw several of these articles that are out there right now on this very subject. Now, one of the things that people notice about the millennials, they are not having families and marriages like the generations before. And, you know, they're not going to make up for the low birth rate. Not this generation. They are very different. So this came out in WTOP, Millennial Generation Rocked by Deaths from Disease of Despair. So we know what's going on with them. That's how they label it, you know. So let's get into this. The number of Americans dying from drugs, alcohol, and suicide continues to climb. And it's bad, y'all. I know it's bad because I see these type of articles more frequently. Just like I see the low birth rate articles more frequently as well. So the die out that's going on in America is very startling. While the rising death toll is cross-generational, a new report shows millennials are especially affected. Alcohol and drug-induced fatalities and suicides nearly tripled in the last 2 decades among adults ages 18 to 34. That is awfully young for them to be getting wiped out during those ages. According to a report from the nonprofit Trust for America's Health and the nation's foundation Well-Being Trust, data collected from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention and analyzed by 2 public health groups found the rate of alcohol-induced deaths doubled for 18 to 34-year-old between 1999 and 2017. Between 2007 and 2017, Americans in the same demographic saw a 108% increase in drug-related deaths and a 35% increase in suicides. Wow. Wow. Substance abuse and suicide-related deaths among millennials have been devastating, said John Auerbach. Do you know when my brother got his first car, that was the name of the dealership, Auerbach? I just remember that when I saw the name. President and CEO of Trust for America's Health. These deaths are often referred to as diseases of despair. And that terminology is still fairly new. They came out with that, I would say, like around 2017. There are a number of specific challenges and stresses that affect millennials. Auerbach points to the generation's economic challenges, especially for those who came of age during the recession. More millennials have outstanding student loan debt compared with earlier generations. Pew Research Center reports, and the amount they owe trends to be greater. So sometimes nearly 50%. So they are experiencing a lot more debt than the generations before. They're facing significant problems in terms of housing costs. Yeah, because they said hardly no millennials. I mean, some of them, but they said the amount of millennials that are buying houses is very low. And also, millennials don't have some of the support that have helped other generations as they've dealt with their own stresses, our back said. Yeah, well, I guess when you really think about it, if you got all kinds of student loans and you're in more debt than your parents' generation, then yeah, you might not have money for a home. Not like that. Millennials are less likely to be married. Yeah. Less likely to live in the community where their families live, more likely to depend upon social media for communication, and they experience a good deal of social isolation as a result. Yeah, because communication is very different now. You know, many of those generations before, they grew up at a time when people did not all have cell phones. And some of these people may have been around when computers came on the scene because a lot of these generations before the millennials didn't even have computers growing up. That didn't come until later in their lives. The report offers several recommendations to reverse the trend, starting with comprehensive health and insurance and access to behavioral health services. You know, no defense, but America has not been able to turn anything around. I mean, let's be real. The opioid plague has been going on for 20 years. They have not been able to turn that around. They never been able to turn around suicides. Those increase every single year. And now you have what they call deaths of despair and all these people dying from alcohol. America has never been able to turn anything around. I mean, if they turn something around, y'all, please put it in the comment section because I'm telling you, they don't seem to be able to turn anything around. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 25% of Americans ages 25 to 34 lack health insurance in 2016. The report also stresses the importance of reaching millennials, where they are likely to be, including at colleges, technical schools, reproductive health clinics, and on social media. And our back said now is the time to start considering the next generation. Millennials are becoming parents. And so we're thinking about the supports necessary to make sure that their children get the kind of preventive interventions that are necessary, he said. One of the biggest challenges public health officials face when it comes to setting recommended policies in place is the public's perception of millennials, who are often portrayed as entitled. There is, I think, something of an inclination to think of millennials as being in the prime of life, not needing the kind of support that maybe other generations might need, Auerbach said. And so we hope this report is a wake-up call that this is a population that is at elevated risk and special attention is needed to deal with the very particular circumstances that affect this generation. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, as far as alcohol, drugs, and suicide is concerned, this generation is in big trouble. They're in big trouble. So there are a lot of differences. And I have stated this to you before. When I was growing up, there were weddings at every single church around here. Sometimes you would see 4 or 5 wedding parties on the road. Now, these churches are closed up. I could probably count on one hand how many times I've seen a wedding party on the weekend. You just don't see them anymore. You can tell the millennials are not getting married like the generations before. You can tell. And I know I read an article in the local newspaper of how very few millennials are buying the homes out here, where the generations before, people were getting married in their 20s and 30s and having children, and they were getting, the little starter homes, their first home that they're starting out with as newlyweds, and then, upgrade from there. That's not even going on now. That's not going on now, y'all. It is a whole different ball game out here now, as far as these generations are concerned. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is sad, but as far as the drug addiction and everything, this is actually the norm in America. And that's really, wow. It is the norm to see this happen in America, y'all. I have been talking about deaths of despair since 2016. And they're just adding a different spin on the term now, diseases of despair. But it's really ultimately the same thing. You got all of these young people whose lives are being claimed by drugs, alcohol, and suicide. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.